Well, good morning, everybody. Danny back from Deep South Homestead. Guys, another beautiful morning. I mean, we wake up in the morning, it's around 59 to 62 degrees. What I call a perfect temperature for getting outside and doing stuff. Light breeze blowing. Just beautiful. We're able to accomplish a lot here. It's not pouring down raining. Unlike what I can say for a lot of the other parts of the country. We actually are getting a little bit of a break from the rain, and everything, the garden is just flourishing. I mean, I'm amazed at how well it's doing. But you know, gardening is almost, a lot of stuff's over for us here. Those of you who follow us, we've dug all of our potatoes. They're all over with. All the onions are up, dried, stored, still processing some of them. We saved some for salsa and different thing when the tomatoes come in and all. English peas are all over with. We done picked them, pulled all the vines. All that kind of stuff's over with. We're picking blueberries right now. Mulberries is all over with. Figs are really beginning to pop. I mean, they usually come in around the 1st of July, but I'm telling you, they may be a little early this year. They're really popping right now. I mean, peaches are already big old peaches on the trees. If nothing happens, we are, I mean, I don't know what to say. God has been so good. The high tunnel, we are loading up on stuff out of the high tunnels. I told Wanda, I said, at the rate this is going, I'm probably going to want another one, because the more I can do in that high tunnel, and these are blemish-free vegetables. I mean, no chemicals on them whatsoever. The most perfect-looking vegetables I've ever grown in my life, and an abundance of them, insect-free. I told her, I said, one more high tunnel, and it would keep me from having to come out here in these gardens a lot, and we could intensely grow right there in the high tunnel. And I believe we could supply all the food that we need. Which it brings me to my point today. I always like to share a little bit of about what's going on before I start. But this brings me to the point, what are we not being told? You know, it's just as bad to not be told something as it is to be told something. And when you have something that's really not told to you, then you really don't know what's going on. And that's where we're at today. We're not being told the whole truth about a lot of different things. I use the high tunnel, for instance. There's something going on in the nation right now, and it's been there for a year or so now. I've been following it for quite a while, but I haven't really seen anything about it on the internet much, and it may be just because maybe I'm not in the right algorithm, I don't know, but there's a place in central Kentucky called App Harvest, and it's a giant greenhouse. It covers like 60 acres, growing tomatoes, and they're going to put in like 12 of these to supply, and they chose Kentucky because from Kentucky, it's less than 1,000 miles, I'll say less, so around 1,000 miles or less to most parts of the United States to distribute food. And these greenhouses that they're going to be installing in this geographical region right there is going to supposedly supply all of our food for the future, where we don't have to depend on, shall I say, imported stuff, or maybe agriculture in general. It will be supposedly organic food, no chemicals, no pesticide, grown in a perfect environment. And you know what? It sounds really good, doesn't it? I mean, doesn't it sound great? America has finally, I mean, here we are, we're starting to grow our own food, and we're really wrapping this thing up, you know, we're going to really do good, but what are we not being told? Well, let's look at a few things that we're not being told about all this. App Harvest supposedly is a fantastic thing, and I think it's a great concept. But there's a dark side to everything. The first thing when I seen that and started looking into it, at first I thought, wow, this is amazing. No more food from Mexico, which is what they're wanting. No more food from all these different southern, Brazil and all these kind of places. No more importing all this food. You don't know what's on it. We're going to push this thing over as organic food, which sounds really good. But let's stop and look at something. Henry Kissinger made the statement that whoever controls the food controls the people. Well, if we have something as large as this, now this is massive, guys. This thing, when you look at this, if you go online and Google App Harvest in Kentucky and look at their websites and look at their greenhouses, whoa, it's AI, okay? The one thing you're not being told is it's artificial intelligence. A lot of it is done with robots. They test each fruit as they pick it. It is tested, it's analyzed. Everything about that fruit is checked out as robots pick it. Now it does have humans that help run some of it, but it's predominantly an artificial intelligence type system, growing perfect food. It senses what the plants need. It's pretty in depth. But another thing that you're not being told is, who does this belong to? Well, look, it was a concept of a guy in Kentucky. I'm sure he had a great concept. But the one who's actually in the background on this whole deal, as far as I can find out, is the NASDAQ. And any of you who know anything about the NASDAQ, it's up there in the trading. It's on Wall Street. It's a big financial firm. It's a big financial institution. And it's kind of funny that people like Mr. BG is going around buying up all the farmland, and it's possible he could buy up all the farmland and say, well, you know what, we're just not going to farm it no more. We'll let it go back up in the trees. We're going to plant it in nature. Shut down all the farming land. When you start shutting down a large quantity of the farmland and not allowing it to produce food, and then you have something like this producing the food, those who are producing this food will have the say over the population. And they can do anything to control the population with that. So to me, it's not as good as it sounds. So what are we not being told? We're not being told the whole truth about all of this. There is a hidden agenda behind it. And these agendas are all about manipulating the food source, about controlling the food source. Although up front it sounds like the greatest thing in the world, when you shut out other farmers, it's just like when Wally World came in to the small towns and all the mom and pop businesses around had to go out of business because they could not compete with them. Walmart started out as all American made stuff and people just jumped on the bandwagon. Well, as soon as all the mom and pop places was out of business and they had control of the monopoly, what did they do? First thing they done was they got rid of everything American made and they went to Chinese made stuff. And now all you can get is junk. Wanda and I here the other day needed some stuff for the cabin. We went to Walmart. We were looking for towels and wash rags and stuff like this in a color scheme to match over here at the cabin because we finished the bathroom up. I looked at them towels and wash rags me and Wanda did. I told her, I said, that is the cheapest made junk I have ever seen. The cloth it's made out of is the sorriest junk I've ever run across in my life. And then we went to looking for a coffee pot because lightning struck our house the other day and got her burn up her coffee pot. And we could not find a coffee pot that wasn't just some kind of little cheap plastic thing. Even the Bun coffee makers had an outrageous price on them, all plastic and stuff like this. Nothing made to last. It was just Chinese made junk. And we ended up buying a little old coffee pot. I told her, I says, I'm not paying much for a coffee pot under these circumstances. I think I paid $20 or something like that, $25 for this little coffee pot to make coffee for her with. I told her, I said, this is the stupidest thing in the world, you know. And as I walked around through the store, everything I looked at was just pure junk. Now, I'll tell you what I did. I wanted to make a worm bin. I wanted to start the giant red wigglers. I was looking for 2 plastic totes, one to stack inside the other one, so that I could, make my worm bins. Guys, I bought the last 2 plastic totes they had. In a big giant store like this. Can you imagine? I mean, what are we not being told? It was ridiculous. I brought them home, and I got red wigglers now as big as a pencil almost. I mean, these things are huge. And guys, I'm thinking, what all are we just not being told? You know, I mean, let's look at something else here. You know, we had the Mississippi River Bridge up and over the Mississippi River up there, just north. That the big beam on it broke going over into Arkansas there. Yeah, you know, it's a bad thing. They got to shut the bridge down for quite a while just to do the repairs on it. But I wasn't settled with just knowing that bridge beam broke. Why did a bridge beam break? Is it the only bridge that's got a broken beam in it right now in that region? And after doing some in-depth research, I realized, no, it's not. In a particular realm right there around that area, I believe it was 5, I can't remember now, I looked at, I think it was either 4, 5, 6 bridges that's broken and can't be used anymore. One's over around Fort Smith, Arkansas, and one up in Missouri, I think it was. One down over to the edge of Tennessee. These bridges are broken, and there's nobody talking about them. But they want to talk about the one over the Mississippi River. And I was like, well, why are all these? And the thing about it was, they all happened within a certain period of time. And I'm like, now this is really strange that these bridge beams would break in this region of the country, in the central part of the country right in there. And nobody be talking about the fact that all of them broke. Well, when you dig a little deeper, I found out some very shocking stuff that not only pertains to that, pertains to the rest of the nation and the rest of the world. There's been seismic activity going on up there. They're having earthquakes that they're not telling people about. And I say earthquakes, it's not necessarily an earthquake. The tecton plates are moving and nothing is being talked about it. They're shifting under there, and on the New Madrid fault line is beginning to shift, and it's messing up with all the other fault lines that run off of it. The plates are beginning to shift under the earth, and it's causing these beams on these bridges to break, as much as what I've been able to find out. And nobody's talking about that because they don't want to cause a panic. And one of the great things, I guess, about having a YouTube channel like we have is that lots of our subscribers constantly send us messages about what's happening where they're at, because they know I find it pretty interesting. Well, this past Sunday, we had some people from, matter of fact, we had different people send us messages from Western Texas. Danny, we woke up this morning. We had a massive earthquake out here. Nobody's talking about it. My house was shaking like crazy. It was just moving everywhere. The ground, everything. Nobody's talking about it. The tecton plates all along the western seashore, from Washington State all the way to the southern tip of California, are moving, and nobody's talking about it. The magma underneath Yellowstone and way away from Yellowstone, it's not just right at Yellowstone, it's done now way away from Yellowstone. hot steams beginning to pop up out of the ground in places. Some places as far away as up around Missouri. There's some places where hot steam is starting to come out of the ground. Just north of Hot Springs, Arkansas, steam's beginning to be released out of the ground. The magma things underneath the earth are showing that the magma underneath those areas are just boiling. And normally it's just sitting there calm and sitting there, but now it's beginning to boil. Guys, something is about to happen. Now, the day that this is coming out here, we're in the midst of the sun has sent off some sunspots. It started, I think it was Saturday. Earth-facing sunspots was released, and if I'm not mistaken, it's either today or tomorrow. Got so much going on. We have a bunch of CMEs coming. A coronal mass ejections is going to be hitting the Earth right ahead of the blood moons, and we have earthquakes that's going to be taking place. We've had one that was a 9 point something in Chile. They dropped it down and said that it was not that bad, but the first things that came out says that it was, and the truth is it really was a 9 point something, and they're breaking it down to make it sound like it's not as bad. And then we've had another massive one over in a 7.2 or 6 or something like that over in China that actually killed some people. But they're not talking about that because it was pretty rural. It was in a rural area, and just poor people died. You know, just poor. They don't mean nothing to poor people, they said. And it wasn't like it hit a really populated area where it meant something. And guys, I'm telling you, the earth is beginning to shake. What are we not being told by people? What's being hidden from us? The truth of the matter is there's a lot that's being hidden from us. There's a lot of things that's beginning to take place in the earth, and no one wants to talk about it because they're afraid of the mass panic that is going to provide, or going to make happen, and people would just go berserk today. They don't want how to say this, to be careful. They would rather the people just be shocked and it happen all of a sudden, and the people just like, oh my word, what just happened? You know, and freaked out. And it's easier to control people when they're in a moment of panic like that than it is to tell people ahead of time and then have people massively running out trying to figure out what to do and how to do it, and you know. And they don't want that kind of panic. It's easier to control people when it happens. So they would rather wait and just let people be shocked. Matter of fact, if you go look at there's some military documents out there that talks about this. I can't disclose a bunch of stuff here, but I mean, if you look hard enough, it's there. Guys, you know, everybody says, well, this is just doom and gloom. Knowledge is not doom and gloom. When a person has knowledge of something, the Bible says if the good master of the house knew when the thief was coming, I'm going to paraphrase this, then he would be ready for it and the thief wouldn't take anything. So knowledge is power. When you have the knowledge of things that's going to happen, it gives you time to prepare and to do the best that you can do. You know what I mean? Me, I wouldn't live in California. You couldn't make me live in California. You couldn't make me live up down that western seaboard anywhere. I'm not going to live anywhere around the New Madrid Fault. As a matter of fact, everything I'm seeing is showing me that Arkansas, most of Missouri, Tennessee, parts of Tennessee, the Ohio Valley up through there and all that, all the way down this Mississippi River, is just a ticking time bomb waiting to happen. You know, as I've been doing lots of research, like I was telling you, the steam all over the place in Arkansas, Missouri, all these places like that, these hot steam pockets is beginning to pop up out of the ground. Satellites picking them up. If you're at the right place and you're looking at the right channels, let me put it that way, the people who actually handle this stuff, these people who are retired people in this work who now do their own work and they're not afraid to talk. they are showing all this stuff happening. How that the steam is just all of a sudden, just you get a plummet of it up out of the earth, and it's something that hasn't been happening in the past. Now, I mean, you've always had Hot Springs, Arkansas, and you always had the hot springs there, but this is not that. The calderas, I mean, all this stuff around, all these places are beginning to release steam. And that's just simply because the magma under the earth is just beginning to boil. It's got to do something. It's like if you put a lid on a pot and the water starts boiling, pretty soon the pot's either, if the lid's locked down, it's going to build up pressure and become a pressure cooker. And if it goes too long and it gets too hot, it's going to pop off somewhere and the steam's going to come out. So the earth is going into, I believe, what Revelations calls the birthing pains. I believe we're at that point. Man has so decimated everything that he's ever touched to the point where the earth is just trembling. It's just sitting here trembling because of what's happening. Now, I'm not saying man's done it all, but man has played a big part in it. Some things are just the simple facts that nature itself does some of these things. The sun every so many years does what it's doing right now. The earth every so many years goes through a solar minimum like what we're facing right now. Man, I believe, wants to take credit for what God has permitted to happen, and he's trying to geoengineer, which is another thing here that what we're not being told about is the food system. Pay attention. From central Texas up through Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, Missouri, Ohio, Indiana, Iowa, all of these states all up through there is being inundated and flooded. This is our grow zone for the country. All of these places are being flooded. If you watch the rain, the jet streams have been moved to where the rain is just sitting there. I mean, it's just like a big giant water hose just sitting there spraying, and it just keeps training over it and over it and over it, and it just floods it and floods it and floods it. We're sitting down here in southern Mississippi, and right here where I am particularly has been the best growth season we've had in quite some time. Now, we've had some floods here, but it's nothing like what the rest of the country's been facing. Guys, the way to make the company that I started off with, App Harvest and them, very successful is to manipulate the weather and to flood out the grow zones of the country. What that'll do is that will say, hey, we've got to have somewhere to grow food where the weather can't mess with it. That'll put all the attention on these grow zones like App Harvest and stuff. And guys, it's mind-boggling to me. A lot of people will go, oh, there's no such thing as man can't mess with the weather, man can't do this. Guys, go back and hunt it. It's there. I'm not going to give it to you because I'm not going to spoon-feed anybody. I had to spend literally weeks and months finding some of this stuff. There is military documents out there that states they go back to 2000, 2001, maybe some of them go back further than that into the 1990s and 1980s, where the United States military put out some documents that stated they wanted to be able to control the weather by 2025. Guys, that's just 4 years from now. Not even 4 years, hardly. They wanted to have total control of the weather by then. I believe that they've learned to manipulate it to the point where the agenda that's taking place right now, of flooding out the whole central part of the United States, and I'm telling you, if you live up in these areas, up through what I just explained, central Texas, all up through Arkansas and Oklahoma and Missouri and all up in there, where you're getting all this rain at up there, you just as well get used to this, because this is probably, you're either going to be flooded out or are you going to be droughted out? Because if you look just west of that region over there, where the other grow zone parts of the country are, California, the valleys of Oregon, I mean, all these places over in there, they're burning up. Some parts of Texas, burning up. I mean, it's just Nebraska, all these places, burning up. They can't get their crops in because there's no water. Lots of the reservoirs over there are way down low. California's already said it's going to cut off a lot of the water to the farmers over there, so they're not going to be able to grow anything. Guys, it's either one extreme or the other. They're trying to control the food source, and they're doing a really good job of it. If you live in these areas, I'm telling you, you can mark it down. You need a high tunnel. You need a way to grow your food. You need a way to grow it where you can control the environment. Thank God I have a lot of subscribers and I have a lot of dear friends who have greenhouses and high tunnels. They've invested their money into that because they have enough sense to know that the future holds such an uncertainty with food. They're making a way for their families and themselves. I mean, we have tons of people that send us the videos and send us the pictures and of all the stuff that they've got going on. And that makes me so happy. Because I tell Wanda when we get a new picture in or something like this, I'm like, another one just made it to where they can survive. And guys, that is the whole thing behind Porch Time today, is set yourself up where you can survive, because there's so much going on out here that you're not being told. The weather is going to become crazier and crazier. I'm down here in a hurricane zone. I'm expecting this year for them to get a hurricane in this Gulf down here that's so massive, it may take out my high tunnels. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, I expect something massive this year. If it's not the Gulf Coast down here, it's going to be the East Coast. It's going to be one or the other. Or in the Western Pacific right now, I'm going to tell you right now, all up over there, those hurricanes are going to ramp up this year. They're going to ramp up toward the Gulf, down through the Caribbean, all out in the Atlantic over here on the eastern side of North Carolina, all up through that Georgia and, South Carolina, all the places, Florida. Guys, we just as well get ready this year, I believe. I believe they're getting a little bit better grip on this weather, and they're just going to be testing it. I really believe that with my heart. I've never been a conspiracy theorist, and I don't believe in that. I do believe in data, and I believe in what I'm seeing. People are sending us messages saying, Danny, I normally have planted a month from ago, and I can't get nothing in the ground. They're either telling us we're burning up because we have no water, it's too hot, it's too dry, or it's flooding, or it's too cold. One of these scenarios is happening all over this country. And guys, it's all because of an agenda. And we have to be vigilant as individuals to understand that if we're going to make it through this, whatever it is that they want to call this agenda, then we've got to make provisions for our families. Now, I'm not pushing any products. I don't care where you get you a greenhouse from. I don't care where you get you a high tunnel from. I'm just telling you, I've made a deal with Growers Solutions that if our subscribers needs one, to sell it to them and use it. And they gave me a promo code. I'm not making anything off of it. They gave me a promo code that y'all can use, and it will save you 10% if you need ground cover for your garden, if you need a high tunnel, if you need anything to do with gardening that they sell. Don't care if you're buying fruit trees or whatever. You can, irrigation systems, anything they handle. They have hobby greenhouses. They have all this kind of stuff. You get a 10% discount if you use our promo code. Or there's a guy up in where is it, Oklahoma, Mr. Leon, he sells them up there. There's people all over the country that's selling these things. Wherever you are, make sure you get you a way to grow you some food and protect it from the elements. Because, and now people ask me, way up north, now you can't do a high tunnel like I got up north because of the snow load. Mine won't hold a snow load. You're going to have to go with a Gothic design, something that's a little more pointed on top so that it will shed the snow off of it. I mean, do your research. I'm not going to spoon feed you everything. I'm just going to open the door for you and tell you these options are out there. Mine stood up under 100-mile-an-hour winds last year. Now, I personally manufactured and built mine a specific way. I built my own end walls and stuff. These are not the first high tunnels and greenhouses I've ever put up. I've done several of them. And so far, they've all held up well. But guys, when you get them, get the shade cloth that's right for your area. Where we're at right here, we're having to use a 40% black shade cloth. We have the 40% white, and we'll probably take it off and put the 40% black on it, because the white just seems to be a little too hot. But we're going to leave it on because, being honest, it has not went through the heat of the summer yet. We've only had it on through the winter months, and it got way too hot in the winter months. But we're going to wait and let the summertime come on a little more, and we're going to see how it does in the summertime. If it begins to get too hot, we're going to have the other one available here. We've got it on the way now, so that if we have to jerk it off, we can jerk it off and put the black one on it, and see if we can't keep our food going in there like we need to. And pray for us, guys, here where we're at. We have a desire to put up a third greenhouse. It takes a lot of finances to put one of these things up. Wanda and I have, we've spent a good bit on the first two we put up. And, we need to be able to try to save some money toward the next one. But we would like to be able to have a third one, if at all possible. We'd like to try something a little bit different in it. It's one of the things that we wanted to do here at Deep South Homestead this past year. Didn't get to this last year. We wanted to do it this year, but y'all know, if you follow us, we've had to put a roof on the house. That was a large chunk of money in the economy that we have today and the prices of things. That it wasn't unexpected. We've been saving for it for many years because when you put a roof on a house, at that point you begin to plan for the next roof, and you begin to save for the next one you have to put on there. You don't wait until your roof gets 10 years old before you start thinking, well, I need to start saving some money. You start saving money the next week toward the next roof. That's how you do it. And for God's sake, please don't depend on an insurance company. Don't dump all your money out there saying, well, the insurance is going to pay for mine if something happens. Look, I live in a hurricane zone. You're going to get screwed if that happens, let me tell you, because they prorate that roof down to the point where you get very little to replace a roof with, and you done spent all that insurance money on that roof. Don't count on the insurance company. Save your own money toward the roof. And guys, I've been going long enough today. As getting sun's out, starting to warm up a little bit. I got to get back busy. I just wanted to put a thought out there today as to what we're not being told. There's a lot going on, guys. I mean, a lot that we're not being told. We're only being told parts and pieces of it. It's really a big puzzle, and they're leaving out a lot of the edges and pieces that go with this puzzle. And unless you do some research and you find what's really not being said, you're going to get taken, like the Bible said, unaware. And the Bible plainly speaks about a good man sees the destruction coming, and he makes provisions for it. Or it says a prudent man, a wise man, sees the destruction coming, and he makes provisions for it. But the fool or the simple pass on and are destroyed. So guys, make provisions and do the best you can where you're planted for your family and for your existence of your family and for the ability to keep your family fed, clothed, and have a roof over your head. Thank you guys from Deep South Homestead.